Hello, já jsem Broňa, nadšený učitel angličtiny z Brna, který pomáhá lidem zamilovat se do angličtiny. A teď vás nadšeně vítám na začátku dalšího BroňaCastu. Tentokrát tady mám skvělého hosta, Toma Čabana. Tom je rodilý mluvčí z Velké Británie, který už ale nějakou dobu žije v Českých Budějovicích a učí tam na univerzitě. V Českých Budějovicích by chtěl žít každý, jak víme. A netýká se to tady jenom česky mluvících lidí. A s Tomem se podíváme na téma, jak psát líp anglicky. Jsou to takový vlastně hrozně jednoduchý pravidla, který když se člověk bude držet, tak bude psát lépe a hlavně ho budou milovat ti, co budou dostávat ty jeho texty na stůl. Ať už to jsou vaši učitelé, kolegové v práci nebo vaši obchodní partneři. Tom napsal takový super e-book, krátký a velmi praktický, který se jmenuje 10 Unbreakable Laws of Writing, tedy něco jako prostě 10 nejlepších nebo nezlomitelných doslova pravidel psaní. A my si společně právě těchto 10 pravidel rychle projedeme, stihli jsme to ani ne za 15 minut, takže se na ně podíváme a pokud chcete tedy psát líp, píšete něco anglicky, přemýšlíte, jak vlastně si to zjednodušit, jak přemýšlet nad tím, kdo to čte a co vlastně rodilí mluvčí případně od vás čekají, jakým stylem budete psát, tak tohle bude určitě velmi užitečný rozhovor pro vás. Já musím říct, že i já jsem si to užil, ten e-book je skvělý, proto jsem byl rád, že Tom souhlasil s tímhle rozhovorem, protože mi to přijde, že je to vlastně strašně snadný, je to strašně logický, ale téměř nikdo to nedělá, nepíše takhle, je to velká škoda. Ten rozhovor logicky bude v angličtině, protože Tom je rodilý mluvčí a myslím, že má krásnou angličtinu, že si to užijete, krásně si to procvičíte. Věřím, že to zvládnete, i když nejste třeba nejvíc pokročilí. Logicky ke podcastu titulky dát nemůžu, takže za to se omlouvám, ale na druhou stranu myslím, že to spíš oceníte jako milovníci angličtiny. Tak jo, ten slibovaný rozhovor je tady, tak pojďme na to. Hello Tom, I'm happy to have you here and let's go straight into it. So what's, in your opinion, the first rule of successful writing?
Okay, so the first one is keep it simple. I think a lot of English language learners try to be flamboyant with their writing, but it's best to keep everything simple. Don't use a long word where you can use a short word and it means the same. For example, don't use utilize, use instead. It's very straightforward, but if you want to write efficiently and clearly, then keeping it simple is the best way.
I agree. Don't try to be second Shakespeare. Unless maybe it's some kind of FC, CAE, CPE exam where you want to show all the cool words, but in real life, I agree. It's not very useful. Thank you. And what's the rule number 2?
Number 2 is use fixed phrases. So these, for example, in an email, that's phrases like I'm writing in response to, I look forward to hearing from you. And just, if you can develop a big list of these, then it's a really good template. I know some students think it's not very original, but it's really good to have this framework if you want to write efficiently.
But how can I collect them? Imagine that I feel like, oh, this is a great idea, but where do you collect them and where do you store them so you can use them when you need them?
You could just put them in a Word file. I've got a long list of them as well that you can get from me if you want. But yeah, and you can. Yeah, I just put them in my computer somewhere. Just put a file and actually
you have like headlines like opening emails, closing emails, saying that you can't come or.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I don't think you'd have to do it for very long because once you've used the same phrase once or twice, you'll know that's the phrase. I use this every email, so it's fine. Or just create an email template and fill it in.
Oh, clever. Thank you. And rule number 3, please.
Rule number 3 is don't get too stressed over formal and informal language. I know that in the Czech Republic you have T-kani and V-kani and it's very important. But in English it's not as important and there's a big grey area between formal and informal. So obviously don't start a business email, hello mate, it's not good. But you can get away with quite a lot, especially now when all writing is more casual than it used to be. And also, the flip side is if you're writing less formally, don't try to fill your writing with slang because it looks like you're trying to be a rapper or something. Probably not. Well, it might be what you're after, but usually not.
Yeah, that's true. And I think quite a lot of textbooks that people still study with, they use this formal and informal letter, but it was for writing really with hand, and the rules changed a lot with email, so it's good to know that it's not the same. That's a good point. Okay, thank you. We are going to number 4. We are quick. Good job.
Number 4, I'd say try to avoid idioms in your writing. I know they're fun to use, but you have to get them exactly right and use them in the right context. Otherwise, they look really weird. I've written down one example that a student once wrote. He said, "One could say that it's calling the kettle black. There is nothing worse than having one bird in the hand and only 2 in the bush, because it means we will miss this opportunity, even if you are the devil's advocate." And you read something like that and it's meaningless, you know? So I get it. I get why people want to use it, but in writing particularly, I'd avoid it if you can.
I understand, and it makes point. I think just it's people, once they learn it, they just want to use it so badly, but sometimes it's not good.
I know, and don't get me wrong, if you're speaking and you get it right, then it looks very good, but the risk is high.
I agree. Okay, rule number 4. Sorry, 5, please. 5.
Number 5 is, so say what you need to say and then politely leave. So in my experience, most students say that they don't like writing in English, but then they write pages and pages trying to communicate something that could have been said in 2 or 3 lines. So I always try and tell my students, keep your writing to the point, delete unnecessary words. For example, adverbs, they should be the first to go. And you can also do other things like use the active voice, or it also cleans up your writing.
I think there is even some kind of editor or word processor called Hemingway, and it underlines all the words that are not necessary, and you can delete it, because I think Hemingway was famous for trying to make it as short as possible. Okay. And also me as a reader, or you as a reader, everybody as a reader, we just want to clearly see what people want. We don't want to suffer through 2 A4 pages to discover that they just want something super simple.
Yeah, of course. Just making it worse for everyone. So, yeah. But I've used that Hemingway app. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Okay. And when we just kind of talked about our readers, and I think this is rule number 6, isn't it?
Yeah. So number 6 is consider your reader. I think a lot of us make the mistake of worrying about what impression we're going to make, and then we completely forget about our reader. So if we can stop obsessing about making mistakes and the impression we're going to make and focus on the reader, it will definitely improve your writing. So if you're writing an email, imagine how the recipient's going to be feeling when they're opening that email after a long day. If you're writing really complicated, it's going to be difficult to know what you want. They're going to close it. You're not going to get what you want. So yeah, so just keep your reader in mind.
That's true. I have to honestly say that sometimes I open an email and I see, wow, this is so long, and it's one block of text, and I feel like I'm too tired to read it now. And sometimes I postpone it for days just because it's so difficult for me to digest it. So I definitely agree with that one. And I think we are kind of getting to number 7, which is connected with what I have said, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off, but it is exactly connected to what you just said. So number 7 is leave plenty of space on the page. So I've had the experience when I've been teaching university students that they seem to want to fill every sentence, every centimeter of the page with writing. Sometimes I've seen students literally writing onto the desk because they're trying to get to the end of the paper. And I can't grade the desk, And I think when I was marking things, I noticed that subconsciously, as you just said, I would just, if there was no space on the page, I'd put that essay to the bottom because I just didn't want to read it. It's not inviting. And I think that goes for all writing tasks. If you leave plenty of white space, it's just more inviting, and there's more chance that someone's actually going to read what you've written, which I guess is the point.
Most definitely. Okay, and rule number 8, please.
So 8 is allow your writing style to evolve. So obviously writing style is an author's word choice, the tone and the voice that people hear when they're reading the writing. And I think what happens is a lot of people, me included sometimes, try to copy writers that they like, but then they don't do it successfully. So it seems like what's been written has been written by several writers and not just one. So I just recommend allowing your writing to evolve by focusing on writing clearly, using common vocabulary and minimizing mistakes. And then it will kind of evolve naturally rather than you trying to force it. Again, it goes back to number one, like not trying to be too clever.
But what do you think you need for your writing to evolve? Because it's not going to happen by magic. Do you think you should read a lot and write a lot, or just read or just write, or is it somehow combination, or, because I think you get better only when you practice it, or not?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I'd say you just need to, if you want to get good at something, you have to do it. So if you want to get good at writing, you have to write, and then also get good feedback about what you're doing wrong. Because if you don't have the feedback, then you could write for years and years and years. And you're going to improve a little bit, but you're not going to know what you're doing wrong. So you're not going to improve as much as you could.
Excellent. Thank you. And we have just 2 rules left. Number 9, please.
Number 9 is, it's quite obvious, organize your ideas. So I found, I don't want to just bash Czech students, because students, like English language learners, are the same everywhere. But if you don't plan, which a lot of students don't, then it's going to lead to big issues like confusing paragraphs that don't support the topic, fluffy sentences, not really saying anything. So even for short tasks, I'd say you can still get into the habit of noting down the main points. Even for email, before you start, just bullet point really quickly, and then at least you'll have something to work with.
Great, yeah. Because I think people feel like, I don't have time to do that, but in the end it saves time and it's really useful. I would also feel that it's good to have one idea, one paragraph, because sometimes they put everything, in a few sentences, and when I read it, I'm like, is this about that or that? Or, my head is spinning.
I have to say, especially I think in England, we're taught how to organize our writing from an early age. In the Czech Republic, I don't think it happens so much. And I have noticed that people just seem to write and write and write until they find the conclusion for themselves. And then that's their conclusion. But then the reader has to read you trying to figure it out, which is not ideal. It can be brilliant, but on the whole, not ideal.
Yeah, good. And last but not least, rule number 10.
Okay, so rule number 10 is always self-edit. I think most people know this, but then they don't seem to do it.
Too lazy. And I know this feeling, you finally finished and you're like, it's done. It's over. I don't want to see it ever again, but I think you should, shouldn't you?
You should. And also when you're doing it, each time you read through it, look for something else. Like, I'll check my grammar this time, or this time I'll check what vocabulary I'm using, rather than trying to do everything all at once, because that way then it can be too much. And you end up crossing out.
That's a good point. That's a good idea. Thank you. And Tom, just to explain, what we have done was a super short extraction from your ebook or book that is called 10 Unbreakable Rules of Writing. Is it right? Can you tell us about the book a bit and about your other great books that are being published or that have been published recently? Is that correct?
That is, yeah, I'll quickly tell you. So, that was from the 10 Unbreakable Rules of Writing. It's for foreign learners of English, and you can download that for free at my website. It's very short. I've also written a series of books.
But your website is, can you just tell us to be sure that we don't miss it?
Yeah, it's tomchaban.com.
So thank you. I'll try to put it to the links, but if I forget, it sometimes happens to me, so people can find it good.
Yeah, so you can download that for free there. And I've also written a series of books for specific writing tasks. So how to write essays, how to write letters, how to write emails. They're available online. If you just type my name and the how to, you'll find them. And also I've written one more called 101 English Mistakes that Czechs make and how to avoid them, which is obviously aimed only at Czechs.
Yeah, and I think it's really nice to hear it from your perspective. I publish, some things about typical Czech mistakes too, but quite often it's like, I see it from the Czech perspective, so it's nice to hear it from you when you hear something and you're like, oh, what that means. And then you later discover the source of the mistake. So the book is really useful. Tom, is there something you would like to say before I say goodbye and thank you? Some kind of message to the world or to the students of English?
Message to the world. Don't give up. Keep on keeping on. You're probably better than you think.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks a lot again. And check Tom's books. They're excellent. Thank you again and have a lovely day, everybody. And especially you, Tom. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bronya.